Aqara, this is cat. Can you recognize the cat? This is cat. What are you looking at? I'm not allowed near my neighbor's cat anymore, and I still need to test those things somehow. Hey guys, I'm super excited because this camera is everything. And when I mean everything, I honestly mean it, even though it probably doesn't have all the features that I would like to have, but it has a lot. And we're talking today about Aqara Hub or Camera Hub G3 because it was released today and it's worth talking about. So you probably know this is an IP camera, and you probably know that in the past Aqara already had a mix between IP camera and a Zigbee 3.0 hub. And this time around, well, I think they kind of went to a room and someone wrote down all the ideas that everyone had and then they made this device. Honestly, it's awesome. It's a long list of features, so let's start talking about it. Just in case that cutesy animal look doesn't appeal to you, well, you can remove that silicone hood. But I honestly hope they're gonna have more different silicone hoods to add to this device so you can customize it just the way you want and make it fun. Obviously it's a unique device, but let's start from the beginning. Inside the box you're obviously gonna find G3 camera hub, and that's pretty much it. Obviously there is a charging cable, but yeah, that's it. And the camera itself, well, there's a plenty to talk about. First of all, this is a 2K IP camera that connects to dual Wi-Fi. Thank you very much. Finally, I can pick between 2.4 GHz network and 5 GHz network on my Wi-Fi, which is great. Now, this also comes with a 2K resolution, which is a lot for indoor camera. This is advertised as an indoor camera, but with all that silicone and everything, I probably wouldn't be terrified to put it outside. It's not rated, so don't quote me on that. But that's not all. So what else you get? Well, you probably figure out this has a speaker and a microphone, so you can have two-way audios. And based on the fact that it has a word hub in its name, it's obviously a Zigbee 3.0 hub capable of supporting up to 128 sub-devices. Sub-devices because you will need routers in your network to have that many. But it's not just Zigbee hub, because also it has an infrared blaster, so you can switch TV and whatever infrared is switching nowadays. I'll show you what cool things you can do with it in a moment. Oh, there is a rotation, because this thing can rotate 360 degrees and track you and different animals. We're gonna talk about it in a second. And what else is there? USB Type-C. Because, well, finally my moaning days are over and I'm getting USB Type-C connectors, and I'm super excited about it, especially that it is supporting a video pass-through. But if that wasn't enough, you also have AI face recognition, which is done on the device so that data isn't shared with the cloud, and gesture control. So you can do a different... Why did I do this? You can do different gestures to trigger alarms, home automations, etc. Okay, enough of that. This is also rude in English. I am very excited about this device because each time they release something, they take a new spin on the device and offer something unique. Last time I talked about Motion Sensor P1, which had a timeout of only 1 second. So if you are interested in Zigbee 3.0 that will be compatible with Matter in the future, that video is for you. So what else is on this camera? You have a cute button that can be used to easily pair the device. Honestly, you just press 3 times and you can start linking a device. You don't need to even open the app. And the flashing ring light around the button will change the color, depends on whether someone's streaming and looking through the camera or events are triggering. So it's very useful too. But what really struck me was how quiet this camera is when it's moving. My bet is that they are using stepper motors instead of servos to achieve this. Under the camera lens you'll find SD card slot, which supports cards up to 128 GB, and also it serves as a privacy mode or shield, and it turns this camera into a really cute animal that is asleep. And finally, at the bottom of the device you'll find a 1/4 inch screw, so you can mount it on a tripod or different stands. So yeah, what not to like? I already mentioned that it can support up to 2K resolution of streaming, which is great because it will give you a tiny little bit of zoom so you could enjoy the details. And while the camera gets a little bit of artifacting when it's moving around, that quickly settles in and you get pretty clear image. I'm actually impressed. On top of that, the sensor that they're using has a quite good dynamic range, so even when you're pointing it through the window or keeping it outside, you have no problem with seeing stuff in the dark areas, and it's not overexposing too much, so I'm actually quite impressed. Obviously, if you're using this camera for indoors, you'll have no problem whatsoever. In a night mode, you have a typical infrared-based night mode, which is detailed enough, and thanks to 2K resolution, you're gonna get that tiny little bit of details from your scene, so I have absolutely no problem with that. But where it excels is actually audio, because despite having small speaker, it sounds pretty good. It's not just loud, it actually sounds pretty good, and you can hear it from different rooms without having a problems understanding what the person is saying. And same goes for the microphone. So when you want to talk to someone, I'm sure they'll be able to hear you just fine. The next chapter is the motion detection, or advanced detection, because there is a lot of things they can do with this camera, and I could honestly spend another half an hour just talking about these features. First, we can detect anything, from humans, motions, cats and dogs, sounds, the list goes on, and every single setting has additional parameters. So you can set up a schedule of that detection, sensitivity, you can define area of these detections, and timeouts. So you can really define your conditions in which the camera either gonna issue you an alarm, or trigger automation, or record, because all those settings are actually present for each and different configuration. On top of that, you can recognize the gestures and you can recognize faces, including unrecognized faces, which means the camera can respond in different ways to strangers. So that's just detection settings. On top of that, you also have a motion following, so you can either follow humans or follow pets, including cats and dogs. I do not have a dog and I do not have a cat, so I can't really test it, but in terms of following humans, it's pretty good. But I know what you're thinking, so many different options, so many detection types, how do I even get that organized? And I absolutely adore what Aqara is doing in their timeline, because they let you assign custom labels or color labels to each event. So at the glance of the timeline, you will know exactly what is going on when your pets were messing about in front of the camera, when there was an abnormal noise detection, motion detection, or a stranger popping in to your frame. Unfortunately, there is one limitation. When it comes to abnormal sound detection, you can use abnormal sound to trigger an automation. However, there is no control over cruising, so you can't just call at the camera and make the camera rotate around and look for you, which is disappointing. Aqara, fix it, because I know you probably can. I know what you want next. You want to hear all about the AI, so let's get started. When I got this camera, I knew all about, well, I didn't know all about it, but I knew what it's capable of, and I knew you could upload your custom either sounds or your voice onto the camera and trigger it based on AI detection. So you could use either face detection, gesture detection to either automate something or play custom sounds. So I planned 2 pranks on my poor partner. First one was uploading the picture to the camera itself. It's gonna do it all locally, so don't worry about sharing your facial features with cloud. So I got evil and decided to prank my partner. First I uploaded her picture to the camera and set up face detection. When that was done, I also recorded me making weird noises, put the camera inside the conservatory and wait for the events to unfold. And soon enough, she walked by, triggered her face detection, and the camera started to make noises. And I only wish I had it filmed, because that was definitely worth it. Unfortunately, I don't have a recording, but here's the nice recreation. I have nice fairy lights attached to the cocoon seat. and I've set it up quietly so they would respond to this gesture and fire the infrared at the fairy lights, because they come with all that, cheap and inexpensive infrared remote that you can use the camera to record a signal and replicate it later. Then I've asked my partner to high-five me in the air, and as soon as she did it, the lights came up and she was really surprised. It's amazing what you could use those AI detection features on, however they also come with limitations. However, this feature also comes with some limitations. For example, you can't have face detection and gesture detections on at the same time. There is an option to authorize the gestures only when the face is recognized, but you can't make a distinction between one face or another to create different sets for different people, which is truly unfortunate. When it comes to face detection, it's not just recognized faces that can be a trigger. All the strangers appearing in the frame can also trigger different routines. So if you place the camera in front of your door and you have a stranger coming around at night, you can trigger a couple of lights to, well, pretend that someone's at home and is not sleeping, to deter them. That's a very clever automation that you can deploy within seconds. And when it comes to gestures, there's several gestures that you can use, including hello, okay, 2 fingers, finger guns, 4 fingers, and yeah, that's 5 gestures there. All of these gesture triggers can be also modified to prevent accidental detection. So you can set up an area in which the detection is working, or you can limit them in such a way that you have to use both hands in order to trigger them. It's a very useful feature, especially if you're worried about triggering it by accident. It's not just over yet for the smart features, because we have more. You probably know that I use Amazon Echo Show 8-inch to test these cameras, and that was by far the quickest one to cast the screen from the camera onto my connected speaker. Now, it was even beating SwitchBot camera, which I reviewed in here, so I'm actually impressed, because it took around 3 to 4 seconds to display the content, and then the content was only about half second behind, so you can have a conversation in both ways without actually having any problems. But unfortunately, what you can't do is the control of the direction where the camera is facing. For that, you probably want to set up voice automation scenes that will point the camera in different directions, because this is possible. But where it gets mind-blowingly exciting is when you open the automation panel and look up what sort of automations are possible with this device in both trigger and action tabs. I mean, just look at them. I'm not going to go through all of them because it's just insane on both sides. Anyone playing with this camera and trying to set up the automation will have a great time, and they can create a lot of incredible policies to automate the home with this device alone. Especially that this is a hub as well, because we didn't even touch on the fact that this is a Zigbee 3.0 hub, which means you can automate the devices around you, especially from the Aqara ecosystem. And it's very easy to do it. Triple press on the button, press the pairing button on your Zigbee device, and you don't even have to open the app to pair the devices. How simple is that? Then you can do whatever you want, because it works in exactly the same way as the Aqara G2H Pro, which I reviewed in this video. In terms of range, well, it covers 2-story building and I had no problem with it. However, I wouldn't be so obsessed about the range because it's a mesh network, and let's face it, you probably should have a couple of routers in your network to make sure everything is working great, rather than focusing on getting the longest range possible. That's not the point of the mesh networks. But if the Zigbee hub isn't enough, this thing is also equipped in infrared blaster, which means point it in one direction, shoot the infrared beam, and you can take control of the TV, hi-fi units, some lights, and whatever is using those cheap remotes. The only limitation of that, it will shoot the beam in the direction where the camera is facing, but chances are that the beam will bounce off something and reach your target. If that doesn't help, then you can also set up a custom policy in which the camera will rotate first to a designated position and then trigger the infrared signal. Apart from the list of defined remotes, you can also record the remotes, so anything that you have at home can be replicated. I feel like I've been talking forever now, and there is so many things more to say about this camera, but I'm gonna focus on a couple of things that bothered me. First of all, I couldn't find any cloud integrations right now. or RTSP to be precise. Now previously on the Pro version you had access to NAS server, so you could duplicate the footage from the camera and send it to your NAS storage using Samba 1.0. I don't know if that feature is going to be added to the camera, I really hope they will. Or whether they're going to include RTSP, which would be nice if they did. Another thing is that a USB Type-C video pass-through. Now, I don't know whether it was me being lazy or having not enough drivers, not enough USB ports to test it properly, but as soon as I connected it, it didn't work. But once I got a hold of some drivers for UVC video, then, well, it was working, but the streaming wasn't ideal. I had a bit of a delay and quite a bit of a compression problems. I'm sure if you have more USB Type-C ports and more time to get a proper driver, you probably can get it to work, but that was my quick experience with this. Lastly, I was quite impressed with the fact that Motion Sensor P1 had the ability to be upgraded to Matter when it comes out via OTA upgrade. As this has an Zigbee 3.0 hub included, I was thinking this could be possible for this device as well. However, when I reached out to Aqara, they confirmed that they are unable to certify this device because it's an IP camera as a Matter device, and such that upgrade path won't be possible. So unfortunately we're going to be stuck on Zigbee 3.0 with this and the Wi-Fi connectivity, which isn't a bad thing if you already have a Zigbee devices that are not going to be upgraded. You'll have to pay a pretty penny for this because on launch the camera is available at £109, and that's a lot until you start thinking back about all the features that you're getting and comparing the prices of this versus 2K cameras available on the market. And yes, you'll be able to get them cheaper, however they will be nowhere near as good as this in terms of extra features. And while some of you won't need all of these feature sets, anyone buying it definitely gonna appreciate the value that you're getting with spending your own money. My personal request to Aqara is, please give us RTSP and please enable API access to your cloud so we could integrate it with third-party system. Pretty please? So, big thanks to Aqara for sending me this, at least I could share my opinion as soon as the camera is released with you, and you do let me know what you think about it and whether you like devices like that bring a lot of features into one device, or would you rather have it split into a hub and camera and then have cheaper devices and mix and match of whatever you need. Use the YouTube, you know how YouTube works, I'm not going to explain you all that. But what I'm going to tell you, I've got cool things planned, and the best way to find out what I'm working on is by following me on social media. So use the account of your choice, follow me there, and we're gonna keep in touch. As for now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.